My name is Doug Bailey. I'm a reporter with InsuranceNewsNet, and I'm here today with Brooks Tingle, the president and CEO of John Hancock. And our reason for getting together this time is it's been 10 years since Hancock began a innovative program to sort of incentivize and educate people on living healthier lives. And there's been incredible stories and data that's been collected, and we want to talk about how it's progressed in the last 10 years, and also how you see it going forward from here. Um, so I'll throw that out there first, and welcome, Brooks.
Hi, Doug. Thanks. It's great to see you. Boy, you've been along for most of this journey over those 10 years. We
Feels
appreciate
it.
your interest, and it's great to be able to spend time with you again.
Yeah, we talked last fall about it. And, I was thinking about it. You're an enthusiastic advocate of the Vitality program, which is called. And you even said in a recent release that it's turned the life insurance model on its head. So did you always feel like that? Did you always think it was going to be this revolutionary, or did you see it more as a marketing strategy, or how did you come to it?
Yeah, it's a great question. A little more than 10 years ago now, it came about from a couple thoughts. One was it was easy as an executive to see what was happening in the world around us, right? Digitization, every experience we have as consumers is more digital, is more engaging, is more personalized. And yet, I was an executive in an industry where things weren't really changing that much. You'd apply for a life insurance policy, you'd get a policy, you'd tuck it away somewhere, and then every year thereafter you'd pay a bill, and someday, hopefully way down the road, you'd pass away, and your heirs would quote unquote benefit.
That's right.
Um, and we thought, geez, that's a funny way to prosper in a modern digital economy, to have such unengaging interactions
Just
with our
just set
customers.
it and forget it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So wouldn't it be nice to interact with our customers more? At the same time, we noticed in other types of insurance, Doug, this phenomena of customer behavior shaping the value that they get from the insurance product that they purchased, or that they own. You saw that more than 10 years ago with safe driver programs and auto insurance.
Right.
Saw it with your homeowner's insurance. If you did certain proactive things, fire alarms, security alarms, you'd pay a lower premium. We saw health insurers and employers trying to shape outcomes for employees. A bit more challenging, Doug, because most of us as employees only stay with the company a few years. But for us as a life insurance company, we thought, wow, we have these really long relationships with customers. Couldn't we engage them and try to help them live longer, healthier, better lives? So it was really this desire to modernize. Now, you can wake up one morning and say, geez, I'd really like to be interacting with my customers much more often, more digitally, in a more positive way. Well, why would a person want to engage with their life insurance company more often in a more positive digital way? And that's
Right.
really where the two came together, because wherever we start, whether you're already super healthy, doing all the right things, well, you want to keep it up. If you're not always making all the right choices, probably like me, and need to be a little bit more physically active in those things, well, I can do better and I want to be better. All of us want to live a longer, healthier, better life, whatever that looks like to us. So that was the hook, if you will. That was the context within which we said, let's create more dynamic and engaging relationships with our customers. And I guess another way to put it, to me, every insurer has a choice to make. Are you going to be a passive claims payer,
Yeah.
or are you going to be an active risk manager? And it struck me just how odd it was that we were getting to know our clients so very well, insuring them, and then sitting back and hoping for good outcomes for them. Because a good
Yeah.
outcome for them is a good outcome for us. So why not be an engaged, active partner in that risk? And that really was a shift. And I think it's a shift every leader and every nature and form of insurance should be asking themselves.
You mentioned last fall when we talked that there would be soon be a large enough sample of customers who were in the program that would be able to get a kind of an objective or even scientifically valid kind of results here. Are we there yet? Or have you had enough experience with it?
Yeah, we're getting close. 10 years, our business is one that it takes a long period of time to have one of my favorite terms, actuarially credible
Right.
data. And in some spaces or places or ways, we have enough data to see what's working, and a lot's working. Our customers are demonstrably physically more active than the average American, taking about twice as many steps a day as average. They're more likely to go for preventative screenings. They purchase more fresh fruits and vegetables at the grocery store. We have all these
Wow.
data points that say that at the population level, our customers are more physically active and do all these different things. In terms of hard outcomes, the critical long-term outcome, of course, that we're investing in is mortality results. The,
Right.
the, the good news is that we don't yet have enough deaths of Vitality members to have actuarially credible mortality data. But I can tell you, Doug, every point we see as we go from a few deaths to a few dozen deaths to a couple hundred deaths. So we need 1,000 or more deaths before. And by the
I
way,
see.
we're not sitting here hoping for more deaths than
Yeah.
clearly credible data. I promise you. It's a long time before we have that. I'm happy. But the mathematical reality is you need a certain critical mass of outcomes to be able to say, okay, this is a firm thing. But I can tell you all the indicators as the years pass are that we are seeing not just we're seeing real differences in mortality rates for those that are in the program and participating in the program and those that aren't, and then by level of participation. So in the coming years, Doug, I look forward to talking to you with that data. In the meantime, again, we have all the data about more steps, more more preventative screenings, more likely to adhere to guidelines around colonoscopies and mammograms and things like that. The really amazing thing to me that we're now seeing ton of benefit for our customers and for us are these early detection tools.
Yeah.
Our program started with a heavy emphasis on prevention. And prevention is underappreciated in the healthcare system at large. I would say, Doug, 90 some percent of spending in our society goes
Right.
to treatment. And listen, I don't want anybody to not have treatment when they need it, but I
Right.
would love to see investments going to prevention. And that's what our program started as being all about and still is largely about. But you know what? Prevention isn't always enough. You can do everything right or a few things wrong and still have bad luck or still have, genetic genes that don't cut your way or whatever. And we've learned that early detection, some of these enhanced screening tools, can be enormously valuable and resonant with our customers. And we've offered early cancer screenings and things like that. And
There was some dramatic stories last year's event about people whose lives were saved by the early detection, the Gallery system, and so forth. And I wonder, what's the impact on the program of bringing in new policies? Are people coming to it now, realizing that it's there, that it's available? I remember the fellow who said that the early detection saved his life, but he signed up for the program for the free Apple Watch.
right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
now, is it getting easier to sell a program to customers now?
Right. Well, a couple of things. First of all, it is amazing those stories. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I had a gentleman call recently saying, "You've now saved my life twice." I did the Gallery test by a company called Grail, an early
Right.
cancer screening through a blood test. And that led to a diagnosis of stage 1 throat cancer 2.5 years ago. Then he said, a couple months ago, I took you up on this discounted offer for a screening called Prenuvo, full body MRI.
That's
That
right.
led to a diagnosis of a different stage 1 cancer. And he said, I never thought my life insurance company would save my life once, let alone twice in 3 years. So it is incredibly powerful and meaningful to us. But it is easier. I think one of the things that's been important about adding these screening tools, when the program is mostly about prevention and do these things, do a little less of those things, trying to incentivize and reward behaviors that correlate with longevity. Doug, somebody could tell you and me, hey, don't do this, do this. And we make the right choices, and maybe I'll make it to myself. Maybe I'll live to 87 instead of 84.
Yeah.
Well, as someone in their 50s, that's sort of an abstract concept even for me, right? Imagine somebody in their 30s or 40s. I want to feel better and I want to do those things, but the notion of living a couple years longer, while really important to us and sort of abstractly important to customers, it is abstract if you're younger. these early screening things that are now such a big part of our program can impact your life profoundly right now. If somebody finds out they have a cancer at stage one instead of stage 3 or 4, and we've had customers learn they had stage 2 pancreatic cancer, which can be a game changer instead of finding
Yeah.
stage 4. So that's been an important part of the program, Doug. And I think one that advisors has really resonated with advisors that, wow, yes, this program could help my customers over the long term, but it can also help them in the short term. So I do think the message is really connecting. And if you look, Doug, at some of the fastest growing segments in the economy right now are what they call the longevity economy and the wellness economy. People are very thoughtful about these things. People are eager to find out, what can I do? What tests can I take? What changes can I make that will correlate with a longer, healthier,
But
better life?
But let's talk briefly, if you can, how this is good for business. I mean, I guess the cynical overview would say if you can get people to live longer, they pay their premiums longer, which is a good deal for you. Obviously, there are benefits for them as well. So but was it difficult or to convince others in the company or other companies that this is also a profitable business?
Well, it's been difficult to convince other companies, I would say. I've not met an individual when we describe what we're trying to do, how we make money, and what most humans want, which is to live a long, healthy life. Our interests
Right,
are so perfectly aligned. I've never met somebody that says this doesn't make sense.
right.
But having said that, as you know well, Doug, we're 10 years into it, and no one's sort of meaningfully copied it in the U.S. life
Yeah.
insurance industry, which I hope they do. I would actually help people to do it because I think the whole industry should be doing this. I'll always be very confident in our program leading the way, but I'm frankly disappointed that others aren't doing it. So it resonates extremely well with consumers. We have independent third-party research. This isn't me asking my friends and family, that says 9 out of 10 consumers would prefer this type of life insurance to other. 7 out of 10 Americans say, hey, it'd make me more likely to buy life insurance. People that do buy from us, 25% of people say they bought just because of this. Well over half say it was a meaningful factor. So it's been everything we hoped it would be and more. And in terms of the benefits, yes. I wouldn't say it's a cynical view, Doug. I'm very, very, very honest and upfront. If I was in a room full of every one of our policyholders, I would say, just so you know, I want you to live a long, healthy life. I do.
Yeah.
And trust me, because not only is that good for you, but it's good for me. And you're
Yeah.
exactly right, right? We make money by collecting premiums, investing those premiums, and the longer we get to do that, the better. So I
So
make no.
what do you attribute that it hasn't caught on with other companies?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to ask them, but I mean, it is complicated. The amount of effort and energy we put into the hard science of this. It doesn't work if it's just a gimmick or it's just a thing that you do on the side. Like you have to be all in, and we
Yeah,
invest a great deal in the medical meets actuarial meets behavioral science. And that's essential to make sure that these programs are proper from a regulatory and other perspective, actuarial and otherwise. So it's a lot of work, which I understand. You have to have a good partner on the technology side to have interfaces with every wearable company and lab companies. And so I'm not saying it's easy, but I can tell you it's worth every bit of it because not only will we see long-term benefits in terms of mortality, we're seeing benefits in terms of incremental sales growth. People gravitate towards this type of solution. We have customers now that used to engage with us once or twice a year are now engaging with us 20 to 30 times a month
yeah.
in positive ways. Imagine the ability to turn that into opportunities to serve those customers better, additional products, services, things like that. Customers involved in the program tend to stay with us as customers much longer. So there are all sorts of benefits that we're seeing that to me makes it a no-brainer. And I think in time, Doug, I said this when we launched and I was wrong, but I do think in time, every life insurance policy sold will ultimately come with some sort of feature or benefit intended to help the customer live a longer, healthier, better life. It just makes too much sense.
Well, can you point to one or a couple of elements of the Vitality program that really stick out to you that people really glom onto and have been shown to be real useful and practical?
Yeah, there have been, so many fascinating learnings over these 10 years. Very humbling learnings, to be honest with you. When we brought this to market, we thought people would really love the premium discount. If you engage in these programs, you can get 10, 20, even up to 25% discounts on your life insurance premium. We thought, wow, people are going to love that. And the reality is people do enjoy the savings, don't get me wrong, but when we ask for feedback on the program, the premium savings are pretty far down the list of the benefits
Yeah.
that people get most excited about. And the one that they get the most excited about is actually one of the smallest elements of the program, which is we have two different games that are embedded. The whole thing is kind of gamified, but two
Yeah.
particular games where when you complete a certain number of workouts in a certain period of time, you get to spin a wheel. Your mobile device says you've earned it. Now spin it. And you spin this wheel. It's like the Wheel of Fortune or something. And honestly, the prizes aren't life-changing. You might get $5 at Starbucks, some more Vitality points, $10 at Amazon. But that
Hmm.
game is what we hear more positive feedback from than anybody by far. And we have another game involving nutrition where it's like, I don't know, sort of like squares. It's like tic-tac-toe. You turn over squares and you either reveal a healthy food or a not healthy food. And depending on how many healthy tiles you turn over, you get rewards. And those little day-to-day games and points of engagement have been hugely, hugely popular, even though their dollar value, you might say, is lower than some of the other sources of value.
That's an incentive to keep going. And as you said,
Exactly.
to interact with you. I mean, that
Yeah.
would never have been there.
And that's where the behavioral science comes in, Doug. My whole career, I've been surrounded by medical scientists, underwriters, and things like that, actuarial scientists. Every life insurance company has lots of those. But now this field of behavioral science is so important because, we're going to have relationships with our customers that span decades on average. And how over that time, which is actually a blessing because we don't need to engage our customers and turn them into marathon runners or something. That's not our
Right.
ambition. We're trying to meet people where they are and say, hey, you can do this or that a little bit better. You don't have to get a perfect score on this exam, and you can still do better.
Right.
And it's been one of the things we've had to overcome, to be honest with you, Doug, this perception that, oh, this is for healthy people. I mean, if you are somebody that's already doing all the quote unquote right things, this is a no-brainer. But
Right.
honestly, the most value is created for a consumer and frankly for our company and for the society as a whole if we get somebody who's sort of a person who needs to lose 20 or 30 pounds, maybe isn't quite where they were, maybe their A1C isn't quite what it was, blood pressure, whatever it may be. I mean, most of America these days, right? Like it's not,
Right.
it's no shame in it. It's just where a lot of people are.
Yep.
If we can meet them there and say, here are some tools, some techniques, some discounts on healthy foods, some incentives and rewards to help you make, these little changes that over a long period of time can become meaningful both for them and for us. It's really special.
That's great. You said in announcing the anniversary that you said Hancock would accelerate its efforts in this regard. What did you mean by that?
A couple of fronts. In terms of the program itself, I think we can make even more powerful impacts on our customers' lives. And I'd say the key word that you'll see coming there is personalization. A wellness journey, if you will, or a journey towards a longer, healthier, better life is the ultimate sort of personal journey. I guarantee you, you and I have different barriers to a longer, healthier, better life. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to ascribe any afflictions to you, but
Just
I
by
need
looking at me, you can tell
no,
that.
no, no. I need to sleep better, right? Other people may need to be more physically active. Other people may be living with a chronic disease. Like everybody's,
Right.
it's the most
Right.
personalized thing you can imagine. And even nutrition's highly personalized now, Doug. Like our partners, the experts that we work with in nutrition are saying, you and I could be exactly the same in every other way, eat the same foods over a period of 6 months, and you might lose weight, I might gain weight, and like understanding your own metabolism, what foods work best for you. So anyways, I'm going on a bit but deep personalization. Right now, most people in our program get sort of the same incentives and rewards. And if the barrier for me to a longer, healthier, better life is, hey, I should probably sleep better, why don't I get extra incentives to improve my sleep? Whereas somebody else who maybe needs to be more physically active should have their incentives
I
weighted
see.
that. So personalization, again, that the technology that's coming, Doug, is just amazing. When we started this program 10 years ago, there wasn't such a thing as an Apple Watch.
Right.
Now we have customers say the Apple Watch saved my life. It detected
Yep.
age, things like that. And then these screenings that I mentioned, whether it's the Gallery test from Grail or Prenuvo, and we're working with Function Health now, NutriSense, amazing companies. So
How did that come about with partnering or at least getting involved with Gallery? It is a really interesting company and a really interesting technology, but you have no financial interest in it, do you? Or do you?
not to make it overly personal, but my mom, this whole wellness thing is fascinating to me, and I get kind of upset when people say, "Hey, living a long, healthy life is just all about choices we make." And listen, choices we make are hugely important. There's never been a time where the choices we make more impact, how long we're going to live and how well we're going to live. But it's not everything. My mom literally never smoked a cigarette in her life, never had a drink of alcohol in her life, and worked out every day,
See,
and at 64 was diagnosed with lung cancer and passed away at 65. So
wow.
don't tell me it's a matter of just making good choices. Um, so that's why, I'm so fascinated by these early detection type opportunities. So literally one night I was watching NBC Nightly News and I say, hey, coming up, groundbreaking new potential new technology for early cancer detection. I saw a segment in December of 2021 on this company called Grail and this test called Gallery, and I got on the phone with him the next week and was out there within 2 weeks, and we never looked back. We've been offering it to our customers for 2.5 years now,
Wow.
and just more and more things like that keep coming along, and it's so meaningful. I can tell you, obviously we're a commercial enterprise, and we don't hide that fact, but from a satisfaction as a leader, as an executive, and on behalf of a team of associates at our company, it's just so meaningful to hear from people that are going to have a different outcome than my mom had. Because, my mom, as a non-smoker, they never thought to look for lung cancer when she was having different symptoms.
Right. Right.
Now, when I hear from somebody that says, hey, I found out I had stage one this or stage two that, and we all know the odds. Like, hey, it's still not great news. Like, bummer you got cancer, but if you're going to get cancer, which so many of us will, to find out at stage one or stage two can be, obviously a game changer. So it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I wrote about the fellow who his primary care physician was telling him, no, you don't have cancer, but Gallery test showed he did. He had to go back 2 times and convince his doctor that
Yeah.
this test is real. And
That's an important point, Doug. And I know our discussion isn't a public service announcement, but I will say one huge learning for me over 10 years of doing this is anyone listening to this, watching this, must advocate for themselves. I would say most of the customers of ours, and we have so many of them now, that have learned of a diagnosis by virtue of one of the screenings that we made available to them, they have ended up with that diagnosis in spite of, not because of their primary care physician. That sounds
yeah,
harsh. I don't mean it to be. It's just a lot of these things aren't universally understood. Grail, Gallery, Prenuvo, these things, like some of them are met with some skepticism from the community. So it's not a knock on anyone, but just if somebody says, hey, you ought to get this checked out, push to get it checked out. We had
yeah,
one client who Grail actually said to them, you need to have an ultrasound um, and another test. And they did one of the tests, that you don't need to do the other. And Grail said, no, you need to do both. The fellow insisted with his doctor they do both. And it was the second of the two that they didn't want to do, the healthcare provider didn't want to do, that was revealed the stage two cancer. So
jeez.
just please advocate for yourself, not because there aren't a lot of amazing people in the healthcare system, but just it's a taxed system and this is a lot of new stuff.
Have you had to, or not have to, but are you integrating artificial intelligence now in some of the elements, or?
We're looking at it very carefully, and I'm very excited about it. In particular, the way that I mentioned personalization earlier, Doug.
Right.
When you think about the ability to use machine learning and things to develop personalized pathways, we're not, listen, I'm not far from a doctor. Our company's not looking to play the role of a doctor. But can we or should we not ultimately learn more about our customers from the data that we have from underwriting and beyond, and inform what we serve to them in terms of choices, in terms of incentives, in terms of rewards based on their own unique circumstance. And I see AI being a powerful tool there. I think AI can be an enormously powerful tool in healthcare in general.
Well, listen, is there anything else you want to add? This has been terrific. I had written down a list of 10 questions. I think we hit every one of them.
Right. No, it's always fun to talk to you about it, Doug, and we're looking
Yeah.
forward to the future.